Welcome, dearest retainers, to Court of Blades, and welcome to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. A city where hearts race and swords flash, where intrigue and danger lie around every corner. Centuries ago, celebrated veterans were given title to Valor Isle, a place long abandoned by its first residents. Here, the heroes found ancient secrets, bountiful land, and a fruit bearing oracular gifts. Generations later, 6 families vie for ultimate control of this jewel of the archipelago, each seeking to lead the great dance of houses. A new retinue rises to clash with flashing blades, veiled plots, and powerful magics in pursuit of their house's interests and their own secret ambitions. Speculate presents Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, starring Primi Mohammed, Marie Bilodeau, Brandon O'Brien, Gregory A. Wilson, and your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Be welcome, retainer. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's time for Court of Blades.
It is indeed time for Court of Blades. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Arvanauts, and welcome to Speculate listeners to a Friday stream. It is April 14th, 2023. It is 8:19 p.m. Eastern, and we hope you folks are looking forward, as much as I am anyway, to a Court of Blades Valloward session as we continue with this amazing game, which has been selected officially, as you will note. Not that I'm, spreading the word about it, but, it's been selected officially by the New Jersey Web Festival, New Jersey Web Fest for 2023. Very excited about that. That's funny, Runo. Yes. Remind me to tell you sometime that in a panel, the story about the time that, having never heard this word before, I referred to a gazetteer as a gazetteer. It was not a good time. I felt a little embarrassed. Anyway, it's good to see all of you folks. I hope you're doing well, and I am looking forward to having you all in here. Before we get started, a couple of reminders. If you haven't done so, please follow our channel. Please check out our YouTube with !ArvTube that has past broadcasts of Speculate, many other streams. Discord is !ArvCord. Oh, did I mention it once before? Oh, so embarrassing. Twitter is !ArvTweets. Website, arvanelleron.com. Financially, most importantly, we do have !ArvShop, which is under construction, and !Arv Treon. But the thing I want to focus on tonight is our Speculate Patreon, which is currently sitting at 12 patrons, $46 per month. This is what makes it possible for us to be able to pay our amazing audio editor and to be able to commission overlays and do all kinds of cool things. So Speculate tonight is where you should head if you want to get behind the scenes looks at stuff, behind the scenes content. Mike puts up some GM prep stuff. We've got more stuff coming up down the line, and it's going to be awesome. I'm very excited for other events that we have associated with Speculate, and you can get involved with all of it if you jump on board with Speculate. I will also mention that subbing to the channel here is appreciated, and that's good as well. And I'll also talk a little bit about something else relating to an event which relates to ArvCon, which will have a Speculate connection in just a moment. But on the publishing side, Icarus, my graphic novel from Athos Arts, Library, Tales and Tomes, The Forbidden Library, my 5e adventure and source book from Alligator Alley Entertainment, and Grayshade, featuring my novel Grayshade, which came out last year and is now a finalist in the Benjamin Franklin IBPA Awards in science fiction and fantasy. Very excited about that. It means that it's at least a silver medalist and maybe a gold medalist. We'll find that out next month. But that's the novel. The sequel to Grayshade is Renegade. That'll be out later this year. You can pre-order that. You can pre-order Heretic, the last book in the series, which will be coming out next year for the Grey Assassin trilogy. You can pre-order the amazing tabletop role-playing game being designed by Brandon O'Brien, and it is going to be awesome. And the audiobook done by One Trend Sparks. You can find that at Grayshade. And of course, as always, BLM, Black Lives Matter, important to affirm and assert the significance and importance of Black lives. Help Now, the World Health Organization page on suicide prevention, important to reach out to others when you need help and to reach out to others when they need help as well. And Ukraine, Ukraine, to help the fine people of Ukraine as they fight back with bravery and courage against an illegal and illegitimate war, and send a message that we will stand up for others in this situation in the future. Last thing I want to mention, which is not not specifically Speculate related, but is important, is this. This is the live kickoff event happening next month in about 11 days and 4.5 weeks or something like that, 5.5 weeks roughly, is going to be the kickoff event for ARVCon 2023. This is our charity event to benefit the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation, which we have been doing every year. This is our 9th year, and this is going to be the live event at the historic downtown Bridgeport, the historic Klein Memorial Auditorium. We are very excited for this because we are going to have a live Dungeons & Dragons event being hosted on stage featuring players C.S.E. Koenig, Carlos Hernandez, Robert Austin James, otherwise known as Darkside Rob here, and one Mr. Zach Clay, along with a high school student, and we'll be playing through My Night at the Forbidden Library. It's $5 tickets to get in the door, $5 tickets to watch this production, and $5 to get online if you want to watch it online. So please, and all of that, of course, is to benefit the Klein Memorial Auditorium, which is a nonprofit, but most importantly, to benefit the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation. So please mark your calendars, Thursday night, May 25th at 6 p.m. Eastern, and please spread the word. I have these digital flyers I can send to people, and if you live in the tri-state area, I can even send you physical copies as well. But with all of that said, I am now going to unmute myself so that my compatriots, and one person who is a friend but not a compatriot because, you know, the dancing master, that's the deal with that, and then is going to head over to reveal the not full crew, but you know, full-ish crew, but a crew of people that will be adventuring. We'll all be adventuring together because now we've saved Valloward. You know, last time Valloward is saved, so there are no more problems. So this is just, basically it's a ticker tape parade. We're just going to walk around the city high-fiving people for a couple hours, and that's I'm sure how that works. And with that said, I'm going to hand this over to Mike, who is now going to find a terrible way to do horrible things to my character for my hubris at claiming I know anything about it. Mike, over to you.
Your victory lap cut short by a tidal wave. So yes, as Greg said, I'm Mike Underwood. I will be your dancing master tonight. Dancing master is the term that we added. Dancing master comes from the Drakes.
It
and
does.
And I heard it and fell in love with it and grabbed it and have never let go, and might take it with me to different games. So thank you to the Drakes for that, as well as for making this game. They are, in fact, Sean and Navi Drake, who are a couple of Drakes, aka the designers of A Court of Blades, which is the game that we're playing. For tonight's session of Valloward, we will be joining the Messengers of Worcester for some downtime after their latest exploit. And as Greg probably mentioned, we are delighted and honored for Valloward to be an official selection at the 2023 New Jersey WebFest, and are excited to to learn what other shows are being celebrated by that festival and to get to participate however we can.
I thought you were going to say to learn what other shows will finish second, and I was like, "Wow, coming out strong! Let's go!" just kidding.
I'm trying to sit very humbly in. It's an honor to be included.
Of course, no, naturally. It's Court of Blades. I'm just saying, I have this feeling of House of Worcester even in the festival, is what I'm saying.
Right, there is the question of how much of the Bravo Sprezzatura to bring into the work of the dancing master and the work of the producer. So I understand that tension. But I am not in this alone, because if I were doing this alone, I would basically be improving a novel for you, and that would be way more terrifying and difficult. Fortunately, I am joined by 3 professional storytellers, accomplished writers in their own right, who are going to help me tell this story together. And I will ask them to briefly introduce themselves and who they're playing, starting with Rhiannon.
Hey, I'm Rhiannon Held. I write urban fantasy as Rhiannon Held and space opera as RZ Held. And I'm still in con mode, so I'm like, and also I'm a professional archaeologist, which doesn't necessarily pertain to this, but it's a thing. And I'm playing Jensia, who is the knack of the group.
It's me. Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon O'Brien. I'm a poet, writer, and game designer from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm also 1/3 of the co-hosts of Speculate alongside Greg and Mike. I am playing Zelpha Hamill, the key of this group.
Oh, okay. And also the award-winning author of "Can You Sign My Tentacle?" That's all right. I'll so there's all that too. So hi everybody. Everyone, I assume on my channel knows me, but I am Arvin Elleron on this channel, Gregory A. Wilson in real life, so to speak, and college professor and author and dungeon master, and one of the 3 co-hosts of Speculate alongside Mike and Brandon, as previously mentioned. And because I am very excited about it, and this was not the case, I could not announce it last time. As I mentioned, this book has now been named a finalist in the IBPA Benjamin Franklin Awards in Science Fiction Fantasy for 2023, the 2023 competition. So we will find out next month whether or not it won gold medal. But there were, I think, over 1,800 entries to IBPA, not to Science Fiction Fantasy specifically, but still. So I'm honored, and I'm very proud of this book, and I'm proud of the series. And since it also applies to, since Mike's, commented was a beta reader for the early version of this, and Brandon is the tabletop designer of the game, in addition to being a beta reader on the Gray Shade and has read Renegade as well, and beta reader on Renegade 2, there's connections here one way or the other, but I'm excited about that. And again, I do want to mention, just for everybody, that thing about ArvCon. You will see some combination of these folks, definitely Mike, and I'm pretty sure at some point Brandon will be connected to it, actually, because of Eberron, which is going to be happening on that weekend. So all to benefit the Damon Running Cancer Research Foundation. So if you want to find out more about that, please type in !Klein. You can see that D&D kickoff event. And coming up next month, I'll talk a little more about ArvCon, because it's very personally important to me, and it's important because it's doing great work for cancer research. We are going to surpass $30,000 raised this year, and last year we raised $7,000 alone, over 7,000. So I want that record broken this year. So anyway, that's me, and sorry for taking extra long.
How dare you promote the things that you do on your own channel?
Listen.
Yeah. So for those that don't know me, I publish as Michael R. Underwood. I write science fiction, fantasy, mostly adventure fiction. I've done urban fantasy, epic fantasy, space opera, and more. You can check out my geeky urban fantasy series that starts with Geekomancy anywhere books are sold. And I also do a series of dimension hopping genre heists called Genre Knots. And you can find those and in similar places. My books have kind of moved around several times. So like I always have we have to do the running tally of like which thing to promote at which point here, like especially for folks who do like one long series, that part's a little bit easier. I'm a little bit more all over the place. And because people are on the phone, I'm going to keep vamping. I'm going to move it. Yes, thank you very much. I think what I'll do is I will do a little bit of recap for the audience's benefit. The Messengers of Vorster, which is the name of this coterie, had most recently kind of finished like a multi-mission arc of identifying, tracking down, and then dealing with a revenant, basically a warrior from the era of the founding of Valloward, who had been resurrected through necromancy, which is very taboo in Valloward. Sidebar: taboo has a very specific cultural history that is very different than the way that I used it there. So it's one of the words that I'm trying to like sometimes scrub out of my memory. So it's very verboten because the Germans won't mind. And so through some magical means concocted and employed by Jensia, Rhiannon's character, they were able to put Julian Villanso, one of the founding members of the Fairest, which now lives as House Fairest, to rest. And with that errand done, we will join the messengers over the next couple of weeks following that errand as they attend to their own personal needs, any projects that they may have, and make plans for whatever next errand they wish to go upon. I know that the group discussed kind of a rough outline of, okay, let's do this one, then this one, then this one. But as the GM, I am also required to make their lives difficult. So some of the things that you're going to get tonight are me kind of displaying to the group how the world is shifting and moving, and the ways in which the world is pushing back on them. In this game, we have a system of entanglements where whatever you do interacting with other factions, there are going to be ripple effects, and that stuff kind of comes back to the group. And this is kind of following suit from the game Blades in the Dark by John Harper, which is the first game of this Forged in the Dark design style that has entanglements. And then Court of Blades has its own kind of genre and setting specific version of those entanglements. As other recaps, I'm going to remind the audience that Zelpha Hamill, Brandon's character, had become what this game calls an intrigue, which is a large-scale, long-term project that tries to utilize the house's resources to accomplish something big. And so she is trying to basically outmaneuver a high-ranking banker at the Bank of Valloward, who is trying to basically edge out and kind of destabilize and dehome a bunch of porters and other kind of groups within Dialta communities on Valloward. And so Zelpha, being a member of the Dialta and very connected with those local communities, is trying to work against that. I will, when Brandon is able to rejoin us, reveal that I have, unfortunately for Zelpha, added 1 tick to the clock, that if it fills, the bank wins, because time is passing. And so Brandon, I must reveal to you, unfortunately, that because we have passed into downtime and time is advancing, I have put 1 additional tick on the bank wins in your intrigue set of racing clocks.
We've got to stop before it's turned into Potterville. We got to go stop the bank.
That means I should do a thing at some point, yes?
Basically, what I will unpack this as to indicate, if you do not keep working on this project, the bank will just win. Equally will kind of achieve the goals that he has set out to do. And so your window to thwart this plan will close. If it's 1 tick per errand, you have like a little bit more than a season left to do it. But when you roll on that intrigue, if you get a consequence, I'll add to that clock as well. And so you may not want to wait a whole lot.
Noted.
AKA Zelpha downtime is what I'm hearing here.
Probably some there. You can use influence to get additional downtime actions. And for Greg, Carevis had started working on putting together an interfaith food aid event, following through on some of his conversations with Father Cartagano, his spiritual mentor of many years, who works and kind of operates a church in the barracks, which is now a kind of working to lower middle class neighborhood that back in the founding was where a lot of the kind of enlisted soldiers lived, which is one of the neighborhoods that we've kind of zoomed in a little bit more on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's that. And now that everyone's back, the recap is done.
Appropriate.
So that is a reminder of some things that have happened in the last session and the last couple of sessions. And now I come to some news. In the days following Julian's kind of return to his eternal rest, a new ballad starts to make its way around the streets and is growing in popularity. And this ballad is known as Blood in the Water. And it tells the story of the brutal annihilation of a group of poor and working people from the lows, the poorest of the poor neighborhoods in the city, where it is known, of course, that many members of this organization are poor people who have no prospects and have been trying to make opportunities for themselves. And they crossed the wrong people. And so the kind of hidebound overbearing members of House Vorster annihilated this poor group of kind of misled youths. And so it does not take a lot of work to backtrack Blood in the Water to a certain individual who you may already know. And what I will ask is, did we come up with an actual given name for the voice? That kind of meddling poet who you crossed. I did not see one in my notes, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't come up with a new name. So this is the voice beloved weirdo poet who the group set as one of their one of the factions that they have a negative status with.
Yeah, there we go. Copy of faction relationships.
Because if we don't already have one, then we could come up with a name for him right now.
Yeah, I don't think we. Although I'm having trouble. Where is the? Is it not spheres of influence? Where is the thing?
Faction relationships.
I saw a copy of faction relationships, but I can't seem to open that. It's not. It just pulls up something blank.
Yeah.
There we
go.
So
I've done shown to players, and now I'm going to edit and make sure. Greg. So.
Because I'm going to show it to chat as well.
Yeah. In the edit menu, you are listed as being able to both see it and interact with it.
Yes, it just popped up now. Okay. But it was weird. I don't know if that was just a super long delay or what, but
sure.
It just popped up.
Roll20 will sometimes do that. And so if we scroll down into no, that's wrong. Where did my actual one go? That's very strange. So when I open faction relationships now, it has like a whole extra set listed that are the ones from the original setting.
Whoa.
So the outsiders, tier 1, the voice, parentheses, beloved weirdo poet, is the person of whom we are speaking. This extra set of factions was not in this this document when I was doing prep this afternoon. Arudnell, who is here, was there for that stream and can probably attest to this as well, or can tell me that I'm misremembering. But regardless, the voice is kind of using the influence and the skills that he has, and is kind of spreading a story about the messengers in a what we would probably call a misrepresentation of what actually happened. But there is enough of a kernel or a whiff of truth to people that it is making some problems for House Vorster's reputation. Does anyone have an idea for a name for this poet, or perhaps just a nom de plume? If we have something in addition to the voice.
I'd call him Byron, because that guy was also that guy was a jackass.
Actually, that was what popped into my head too. Weirdly.
I mean, it sounds
Brain
like
cell.
Byron. This guy. Oh, nice. Welcome in, Queen Courts Games, Aaron. Hello, hello. Yes.
All right. So
yeah, there you go, Byron.
And the full version of the voice is probably like the voice of the commons, because he's that type of arrogant.
Oh, so he's the self-proclaimed voice of the people type of thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Is he does he come from money? Hard to say. You'd have to investigate that faction and find out what this guy's actual deal is. So that news makes its way back to the Vorster compound pretty quickly. And then I would like to start our scene work by zooming in to wherever it is that Jensia stays when someone comes to call on her for a request.
No. Well, she's probably still like not in student housing, but like adjacent to student housing. And so it's probably like some boarding house. She just has one room. She eats with the landlady or landlord, whoever prepares the meals, that kind of thing. So
so what I would like is for you to describe a little bit of what you were thinking in terms of like a description or any details on the relationship with Owen, a former teacher. So I have some ideas that I can fill in, but as this is a contact, one of your contacts, I'm very happy to let you kind of do a fair bit of that sketch, and then I will make requests as needed to make it fit kind of what I've come up with, because this is in fact Owen who is coming to visit.
Okay. Okay, let's see. So probably older than her, sort of the cohort before her.
Okay.
So she's graduated now, so she's no longer a student, but she had a tendency to run with the sort of younger professors when she was still in school. So I'm thinking he's probably from that sort of like cohort. So he's a little bit more entrenched in academia now.
Yep.
And so probably their relationship is fairly surface level, because Jensia likes to shut up and listen. And so he's probably under the impression that like she just loves all his ideas and she's such a great sounding board, and doesn't really know that much about like her, and maybe dismisses her because she doesn't have her own original research or stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can mostly work with that. You would know, or last you would have heard, is that Owen kind of has a junior professorship in Academy Valloward, and is broadly liked by his students, but is not good at departmental politicking. And so when you come to meet him, he's got kind of full but like close shaved brown beard and kind of long hair, a bit tall, and very like conversationally effusive, and we'll say, Jensia, it's so good to see you. It's been too long. I'm sorry for coming without writing ahead, but have I had a week and I could really use your assistance? I'm so sorry for the imposition.
It's certainly, if it doesn't interfere with my other duties, but I would love to hear what's going on. Even if I can't help, tell me.
Okay. I think in that boarding house, there would be like some kind of sitting space, so you wouldn't necessarily have to entertain just in your room. And Owen takes about 10 minutes to say what I'm going to take about 30 seconds to say because of the type of conversationalist that he is. So someone has pulled strings with the Academy and had Owen removed from his position in exchange for, or to be replaced by, another kind of scholar of approximately the same age by the name of Ulysses. And you probably know of Ulysses, that that he is like diligent but a bit distractible, at like colloquia or other things. Ulysses would present like research and work that is like, oh wow, you really did spend 200 hours doing this thing that nobody thought anybody cared about doing research on, and that's actually pretty cool that you found something, but like, whoo.
Yeah.
So not necessarily a scholar of greater repute in any way, shape, or form than Owen. I think they are both competent, and they have their different advantages and disadvantages in terms of like, any given scholar might be a better mentor or a better teacher or a better administrator, or like a more daring scholar or better at networking, and any of these different things. But Owen has basically just been ousted and someone else has been inserted, and Owen tells you that that he believes someone in the great houses has pulled some strings to make this happen, and he's just totally beside himself. And Jensia, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. There's the Academy, and then there is everyone else. Am I supposed to go to Rontis or back to the old country? I mean, my whole life is here. And they just threw me out on the street. I know that you have your own, you have new loyalties now, and there are many demands on your time. But if there is anything that you and your colleagues can do to address this situation and help me regain my seat, ideally, or at least get justice for what has been done, find something else that I can do to feel useful and to be supported. I bear no ill will to Ulysses. He's a perfectly solid scholar, does not do things quite the way that I would like, and maybe does not have quite as much of an affinity for his students, but it is not toward him that I have ire. But I am quite vexed and would be very grateful for any assistance you might be able to provide in addressing this administrative coup.
Well, so I don't want to promise too much. I am certainly no expert, even with my new loyalties in the movement of great houses and their participation in the game. I'm learning as best I can, but that is not my expertise. Certainly, I can ask for help in determining perhaps which great house benefits by this, even if we can't know for sure which one it was. Many times you cannot know that for sure. And then from there, that begins to point a course of action, because it very much depends on why it was done. And then perhaps who it was done by, and then if it is at all possible to address. So the best I can offer is finding that information.
Yeah, and as you're speaking, Owen starts but keeps himself from interrupting you a couple of times because he's very excitable, and says, well, of course, I can review my notes about the last several colloquia and attempt to recall anything that I might have heard from Ulysses about some kind of family connection or something. And I will be sure to get those notes to you immediately. Of course, I find myself with a great deal of free time in the last days of so, and I don't like it. My library access has been revoked. What am I to do?
This cannot stand. I can't even get in the faculty club. What kind of crap is this?
And so, out of character, this is your entanglement from this last engagement, where a house minor faction asks you for aid, and so this is kind of incarnated in an individual, because I thought that was more interesting than something else. Like whenever I can tie in a character relationship,
sure.
And so I thought I could do that, and then Greg would also be amused.
Greg was amused. Although I don't know any of that. Like everything seems completely foreign to me. The idea that academics might have different abilities, that they might not be great at departmental politics. This is none of this ever happens with any of the academics I know.
This definitely does not emerge from my own limited experiences in grad school and narrowly avoiding a PhD program.
Mm-hmm.
So that is that. Like Owen will let you take the lead on this and is like going to be able to provide information. But this is something that you can kind of attend to on your own, bring to the rest of the group or not at your leisure. My intention with this is that this is something of the scale that could be addressed in downtime, or you could spend an errand on it. If you were to do so, and this is kind of to the whole group, successfully accomplishing this would count in the end of season house advancement role as something arising. I throw a new thing at you. If you tackle it and accomplish it, and we have a sense of how it benefits the house, then that's a different way that you can get a bonus. But you still only get 3 errands in the season to accomplish all the things that you want to do.
I mean, Jensia would take it immediately to everybody else, but I don't know that it needs to be an errand. She just wants sort of help figuring out what to do.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to like talk through that scene either in like in RP or in summary?
It's up to you how you want to structure it, but my thought would be, I would say we do each of our individual whatever like encounters, but then do the balcony, the Boston legal balcony where we're like, well, here's what's been going on with me, because then that'll be a good chance for us to bounce those ideas off each other. But that would be my thought. But
yeah, that makes sense. So how about we do one round of downtime actions, and then we can have that scene. You do have some influence that you can spend on getting additional downtime actions. I definitely don't want to like put you in a corner where it's like, oh, well, I said you could do it in downtime, and then I framed things so that now you can't do it in downtime. Like, I don't want to do that. So that's the breakdown. Does anyone have already have a downtime action in mind? Okay, that's a yes from Brandon. It looks like. What is Zelpha up to?
I'll bet.
I need to get back to my office and start dealing with this intrigue, don't I?
Maybe. You also have 5 stress, which is a dangerous amount of stress, but also not so much that you can't overindulge.
Yes, this is true. I should probably deal with that stress first.
I also have
5. And I think fictionally, addressing your obligation can do a little bit of legwork for the intrigue, even if it does not mechanically impact that. We can keep those together, or the obligation is handling other Dialta business, because it's not like only one thing is ever happening at a time, right?
Because I do think, like, on a narrative level, once I've gone back to the office, I'm probably doing several different things.
Sure.
One of which is specifically dealing with this intrigue. So I feel like that narrative performance is like, I probably put together a food drive for some, like, there are areas of some districts where Dialta are specifically living in food desert blocks of those districts that will probably need some assistance, not only getting food, but fresh produce. The fresh produce that hasn't been like severely spoiled. So I'm probably delivering some of that by myself or with like a couple of other people before I actually sit down in the office and do the thing, because I know if I get up, I'm not going to do any work, so I'm just going to do that first and then get back to the office and sit down and actually look at some documents.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull up our Valor Island map and think about where that might be. So I think that what I want to do, or something I've decided I wanted to do today, is zoom in and detail individual neighborhoods, so that over the course of the campaign, we have a broader and deeper sense of the city. And so I think the Lows, the flooded district, is this kind of triangle that's set a little bit apart. And I think I will suggest that this neighborhood that we're going to is kind of in this northern diamond.
You don't have the map up yet, do you, Mike? Because we're not over there.
Let me show to players.
Aha.
So I don't know if my zoom in will work for you. Okay. So I'm thinking we go up to this portal that's in the northeast.
Okay.
And then it's the neighborhood that's kind of to the south of that, where it's kind of in a long strip.
Yep.
And it's just a bunch of fields, more or less undeveloped land outside of here. Probably some amount of like land rights squabbles have kept people from cultivating it. So I think maybe we're up here. I had originally thought like this northernmost section, and that we would call the neighborhood the Point, but a lot of things can be called the Point for whatever reason. So I'm happy to use that name, or if someone else has another idea, we can do that as we zoom in here.
No, that works for me.
Okay.
Where's the barracks in reference to the Lowe's, Mike?
Yeah, so the barracks would be, I think it's this set of really orderly buildings close to the docks.
To the far east there.
Yeah, to the far east there.
Okay.
And this is not proportional. This is not like every building that exists. This is more me providing a suggestion of like building density and things like that.
Okay.
And then this is the version that Sanguine Haze made for us very, very beautifully.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the barracks is, it's very close to the docks, maybe not quite that close, but it's going to be over there, as opposed to, this section of where there's the divide in the city because of the river and that then goes underwater. And then we have that big gray mist mansion in the kind of the space where the river runs underneath it. So here in the point, we're up in this narrow neighborhood. I think the kind of curved knife, upside down knife neighborhood there is probably more like a merchant district. So
okay.
Just characterizing a bit there. This is Dialta relation, food desert, northern city, narrow by portal. Okay. So you are doing a food drive and working with communities there. Who is your, who's a point person or a contact that you work there? Not necessarily somebody on your sheet, but they're welcome to be on your sheet if you like. If you wanted to make this be somebody that you already have written down.
We'll make this someone new.
Okay.
So there's a community activist in the area named Tylen. Tylen. I like the idea that he does not like me. I like the idea that he does not actually trust my capacity to do the work because I am in a house. But part of the work means accepting grace wherever one can get it. So that's the only reason why we still work together.
Okay. Zelpha, what brings you to the point today?
Instead of saying anything, I just lift a large box near my head.
You got some stale pastries from the house's tables?
No, all of this is fresh, I promise you. I've actually been diligent in my procurement of genuinely good fresh produce. I actually made some strategic cooperation with some butchers in the east if you want more regular deliveries of fresh cut meat that can happen on a regular basis from the butcher's own transport. I have some dried goods here, some peas, some vegetables, lots of fresh, it's lots of today picked fruit even, for you to be able to distribute to your neighbors. There are 6 more boxes where this one came from, so I'm just ready to help out.
That butcher you mentioned, that isn't Biaggi, right?
No, although Biaggi is actually a good, you can trust him, you know that, right? There was that one issue was unfortunate, but he's actually good.
Yeah, and my wife is never going to go back there anymore after what he said.
Right.
But this isn't from Biaggi. You said you got boxes. I don't want boxes like out on the street. Let's bring those in.
Right. No. Yes. Okay. Cool. And I help him bring the other boxes in.
Okay. So I immediately know what goes wrong if you get an overindulge, because of the dynamic we've established here with Tylen.
Nice,
so
cool.
why don't you give me that role and we'll see how this goes, because this is supposed to be relieving stress for you.
So God, remind me, can I make this with any
You will roll with your
attribute? This has
lowest,
to be lowest, right?
your
Yes.
lowest attribute. Yeah.
My lowest is body, in which I have no dots whatsoever.
Okay. So that might be something to think about as you spend your XP in the next few sessions.
Oh no, yeah, I know.
Brandon's like, I like playing on hard mode. Yeah. So that
so
looks like you rolled a 2 and a 1, so you'll recover 1 stress.
Cool.
Which sounds about right for the amount of crap that Tylen was giving you.
Fun.
So you have some influence. If you would like to spend influence to take additional downtime actions, that happens at a 1-to-1. So we could extend this sequence if you wanted to do another downtime worth of stress relief.
I'm going to qualify spending this influence as actually trying to talk to Tylen about a project that I want to happen in this area.
Okay. So yeah, I think we get a quick sequence of bringing in these boxes, and Tylen inspects them and is like, okay, yeah, this is fine. And like kind of is dividing things up, and people come in with carts and are moving stuff around. Tylen already has infrastructure here, which is part of why he's a good person to work with.
Like there are already like a handful of other like crew members in this space already putting things together in smaller boxes so people can just take them and leave, stuff like that. And while that's happening, I just kind of ask Tylen if he can come so we could chat separately in a private space in this building.
You want my time? You're gonna help me work. I've got canned fruits in the back that need to get moved around and put in. We have a larder thing. We're changing how stuff is arranged. It's not my idea, but I think it's actually going to work as just a pain in my ass. And so now it's going to be a pain in your ass if you're going to ask me for something else.
Fine, cool. Then we'll talk while I'm helping you rearrange some of those things, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and so this is like flats of canned fruits that are getting moved from shelves in one room into shelves in another room. But it's just the two of you. Everybody else is in a different part of the building.
So, Tylen, I'm sure you've heard some of the housing issues that have been taking place elsewhere on the island.
Yeah, actually, a couple of my people are moved in with family after that building got emptied out.
So I know this is probably going to be a hard ask, first and foremost because resources are scarce for all of us, but I'm reaching out to you because I know that you have quite an abundance of space. I know you have some housing territory elsewhere in the Northeast that I feel can be usefully leveraged as affordable apartment space while I dot some T's about dealing with the legal area of that problem.
Are you in a position to get me permits to turn a warehouse into temporary housing?
I'm working on that as well. I know you have a couple of apartment spaces as well that they're not going to be useful for everybody, but I know that you can put a couple of three-person family homes inside there, just so I can know where some folks are sleeping while I go to the magistrate and ask some questions.
So we've got those and put a lot of money into them to refurbish them because we thought we were going to be able to rent them out to, merchants coming in, some set of folks from Seven Eye that don't know the city and don't know that renting here puts them on the wrong side of the city to do business. If you want me to just rent those out at basement rates to families that are displaced, that's a lot of money I'm not getting, which means I don't have money to run the organization. So I don't know if you've got a line on some fancy high house money that might be able to tide me over, but we can talk about it.
Again, I'm trying to pull as many strings as possible. I want to make this worth your while. I want to make sure that this isn't an issue for any of our kin as much as possible, but you kind of have to understand these are people who have been cast out into the street.
Yeah. I know the story well. That part you don't have to sell me on. Your ability to deliver on the contract and the licensing, that you'll have to sell me on. And I think this is probably a good place for another role.
Mm-hmm. Let's do body again.
Let's go. You can do it.
Let's go, Zelpha. Let's go. Okay. Better. 2 is better than 1. So that's another 2 stress off. You go from 5 to 4, 4 to 2.
Nice. Cool. This is good.
And I think maybe my suggestion there is like just a montage of paperwork and filings, so that Tylen can convert that warehouse space that he mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so then, we get that. And then there's like a time lapse shot of that warehouse space being like divided up, and Tylen and a couple of people checking on like the plumbing and getting a kitchen, like a little bit of a kitchen working there. And then that warehouse space is turned into kind of like a temporary refugee housing situation. And it's not great, but it means that probably 4 or 5 families are no longer kind of crammed in like sardines with people elsewhere in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nice. So I want to do the intrigue as well, but I should give Carevis his action first.
Yeah, let's come back around to the intrigue in a couple minutes. So, Carevis, how are you feeling?
I'm always fine. So I think I also have 5 stress. And I definitely need to see if I can advance this interfaith food event, which I'm expecting is not going to happen now, but is going to happen during the next downtime. Because I think, because I'm like, actually just in terms of time frame, we're talking a couple of weeks between these events or months. Like when I started talking to Father Katargana about this, it was a few months ago, I want to say, like in game terms that we.
So every social season is 3 months, right? Because it's a 4-season year in this breakdown. And so more or less every cycle of errand and downtime is upwards of a month. And so some jobs you might spend more time on legwork.
Okay.
And some jobs you might not. So like this last thing that you did, the amount of time that was the errand was probably less than a week, right?
Okay.
Because you did a little bit of research. You went to House Corinne to kind of ask for some assistance, maybe a day or 2 of like trying to put that sting together, and then the thing itself that night.
But the downtime is happening after the social season. So regardless,
right. So your last downtime was between spring and summer, kind of in that transitional period. So maybe that's a little bit longer of a downtime. And so I would say that we should think about each mission downtime cycle as 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
But I don't want to get too zoomed in on that.
No, it's okay. I only just wanted to have a sense of it. It's like sort of 6 months.
Sure.
I'm trying not to make a comparison to arranging a certain charity event of my own, which takes some months to get set up. Okay, so I need to talk to Father Cardigano about that, but I also need to relieve stress at some point. So
yeah, and I think we can do. You can be pursuing that fictionally, much in the same way that Zelpha's downtime obligation was also kind of partially related to some other things.
And we get 3 downtime actions, right?
2 per character. You can spend influence 1-to-1 to get additional.
Well, if I speak to Father Cardigano to theoretically relieve stress in the process of setting up, you know, like seeing how plans are going and like what I can do to further, you know, get other organizations / people involved type of thing. Like, can that be, if that was one action, then I know exactly what my second action would be, and it is I'm going to go have a talk with the voice.
Sure. So I think to get the mechanical benefit of relieving stress, we're going to focus on that.
Okay.
I don't know that it will also progress your interfaith food clock.
Okay.
I would say that if you wanted to spend 2 actions on that scene, one that's about relieving stress and one that is progressing that clock, we can do a 2-for-1, but it would still count as using 2 downtimes.
All right. And then how much influence does it take to get a third downtime action?
An extra downtime action is 1 influence.
Okay, and I have 2 so far.
Yep. And then depending on what everyone else thinks, you also have influence on the house sheet that can be spent.
Yeah, I don't want to use that unless necessary. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 3 downtime actions, not all of which need to be RP'd. I would love to, however, we need to talk with this voice guy. And so let's do the 2-for-1, and then the poet discussion.
Okay.
I'm going to go talk with the poet because, you know, these poets, like, you know, that's the real problem here is poets being allowed to just
poets wield too much
do their
cultural
poet
power.
thing. I mean, that's the problem. Poets have too much power. They get too much glory, too much money. Am I right? Like this is the thing about poets. Okay. So do you, which it's, I guess it doesn't matter to me which we do when,
no, so I'd say we can do a couple minutes of conversation with the father, kind of can build on that relationship, but then what's happening in the scene will be, like we're probably going over like paperwork in terms of like, oh, well, this church says that they can do this. And my notes say that this church over there they have 30 folding chairs. Okay. 30 folding chairs. That's really good. Like, cause something like this, an in-person event, that type of logistics, right? It's taking inventory, corresponding with people, trying to set up meetings.
Right. And we've done, and that can be mostly just kind of montaged out because we can do, I like the RP sessions with Father Cardigano, but we've done them recently, so I can do another one the next time. So for now, we can just kind of like, if you're okay with this, zip through that. The RP focus can be maybe on the voice. But as far as this is concerned, mechanically, I'll make whatever role you want. But yeah, I have this image of us being in like the, either in the sanctuary or like the rectory or something, behind where he'd probably have this big table, or he's pushed together a couple of tables, and they're, we have like, who has to go what to where, and can we get the bingo night move from the one place, for that night, and all that type of thing.
Like occasionally, like a deacon or some other member of the congregation will come in and help, because you're not the only person that's helping Father Cardigano with stuff, and so we get a bit of that. Do you want to do your indulge vice or your kind of seek your stress roll now, and we can use that to frame a tiny bit of RP? I've often found that useful.
Let us do
that. You'll be rolling your lowest attribute, which is probably not body.
You said my lowest attribute?
Yeah, so it looks like either spirit or mind you have one action in.
Yeah, so let's say spirit, I guess.
Sure. That's for the social attributes. So that certainly makes sense for planning and kind of social organizing.
So spirit, and I can just do spirit, not sway or any of the, right?
Yes. Okay. So if you click on spirit, it should it should just roll.
And so no bonus dice or anything like that, because I'm obviously not going to push myself to get rid of stress.
Yeah, because this is just an indulge.
All right, here we go. That's great.
Oh, bummer. So again, relieving one stress is better than nothing, but is not great. I think, is Carevis used to doing this type of logistical work?
No, I think
Okay.
Carevis is more of an idea guy. No, I shouldn't say that. No, Carevis is probably not used to it. And probably it's not exactly impatience, but probably is like, this should be so easy. Like, we need to get some food for these people, and we just like, what is this nonsense about? Like,
Right.
what do you mean there was an argument over the bowling game last year, type of thing? Like,
Yeah,
right?
and I think the vibe of
Oops.
Father Cartagano's part of the conversation, I feel like I'm leaning on like experience with like local social groups, and like when I was in the SCA, and just like a grudge from 7 years ago means we can't do a thing right now because this person doesn't like that person. And there's just the amount of social lubricant and humility that is so often required to be able to keep like local social organizations going.
Yeah, to help other people, let it be noted.
Right. Like somebody, like oftentimes somebody has to eat crow, and somebody has to be the person to do like the thing that nobody wants to do the work of. And so you're trading favors of like, well, I'll do this for you over here if you'll come to this meeting, because you're not going to agree to actually do the full on do the thing. It's like, it's very piecemeal. And the father is the one who has all of that social history, like kind of just in his head, because it's mostly been him. And so I feel like maybe Carevis is learning a fair bit about like, oh, this is the rest of what Father Cartagano does. Because, Carevis has a very kind of particular focused spiritual and like kind of mentor-mentee kind of relationship, it seems like, as we've established. But that's one of many things that Father Cartagano does. But you are helping, you are putting in some work. So if you want to pick an action that you think represents what the steps you would take toward making this event happen, and then we'll roll that as a downtime action for a long-term project.
I would say that a lot of what I would be doing in this case probably actually is survey or mind, because I think I think what I would basically, Carevis has increasingly come to see a lot of these sort of interactions, including with people, because, he is, as is noted, quick of wit. So yes, very good combat and all that, but is not just, not just a strong arm, but is interested in the wits of something. Thank you for the resub, by the way, Dragon Spear. Thank you so much. I think has come to see these things as sort of tactical problems to be solved at times as well. So I think that would be part of it, which is sort of looking at these things and being like, these two don't like each other because this one said this to this one. One's like, maybe that's the issue, right? Like, I didn't have a lot of chance to relax, but I had a big chance to actually like work through this with them. But if you've ever spent any time like trying to get 5 churches to agree with each other about, like, jokingly about when to hold the bingo night, you can know that reduction of stress is not going to be a part of that scenario like that,
So, well, let us hope that the survey roll is as high as your stress relief was low, and that is borne out by the fiction.
One can only hope. So what, do I have any like risky or like what, how does that all?
No. So you can do a fortune roll using your survey rating. So it'd be fortune with 2 dice.
Okay. Does it say, it just gives me fortune roll, but does it?
Yeah. So if you click roll fortune and then number of dice.
And it says standard when I do that though. Like effect.
Okay. And that's when you click the roll fortune.
I went on survey. Because it's confusing though, because under survey, when you first click on survey, you can put position fortune roll. So it's
interesting.
Which is odd. So, but if I roll fortune, I can do that if you want. I mean, like, that's fine.
Yeah, we'll investigate that. I think if that API is written perfectly, when you select fortune, it should get rid of position and effect.
Yes, it did do that. Yep.
Okay, great. So then, you can just use survey to do a fortune roll. That's great.
Which would be
2 dice because
right?
you have
Total
2 points in survey.
Yep. Okay. All right. Hey, there we go.
Cool.
See, it's exactly what we said.
when you get a 6 there, that's going to be 3 ticks. So I'm going to choose side. You're at 2, 1, 2, 3. So that means you're at 5 of 6 on this. You could spend 1 influence to increase the result level, which would finish the clock. But if you want to come back to this in your next downtime and have it be this thing that happens over, the planning is a couple of months. That's really up to you.
No, I'd rather get this out of the way because I can probably see the result as a part of it. So I'll get rid of 1 influence then. So I'm down to 1 influence.
So, yeah, I think so. As you described it, Carevis may not be experienced at doing this type of work, but when he is able to wrap his mind around, here are all the moving parts, he's able to make a lot of headway. And I think Father Cardigano has the connections, and maybe that's how you do. How do you think Carevis makes a big impact in getting this to be a thing that happens?
I have this image of getting together the sort of major faith leaders from, the Reformed Javelin Church and a lot of these others, and basically get them into a room where everyone is just sort of kind of sitting awkwardly. There's this sequence for those people who watch the Book of Boba Fett where Boba Fett's got a bunch of these guys sitting around, and these gang members. And as it turns out, if you watch the series, they kind of screw them over anyway. But regardless, like at the time, they're basically just like, yo, you can do things the way you want, and then, you'll just be in anarchy, or you can actually make more money. So I imagine that there's a group of these leaders sort of sitting around, and Carevis would basically kind of lay out, this is what you do for your people. You are here for them. You are here to protect them. You are here to nurture them. You are here to bring them into your flock. And you can't do that if they're literally dying from hunger. You are failing your faith every moment that happens. And each one of you, regardless of whom you believe is giving you the power to do this, whichever God is making that possible for you, all of them tell you the same thing about feeding and protecting the faithful. That is what this is about. If you don't participate in this, if you sit out, if you say that you are not going to allow yourself to be involved with any of these others, then you are failing your faith. And if anyone dies on your watch when they could have been saved by simply becoming a part of this, you are complicit, and your God will not approve. Don't think of it as working with these people. Think of it as working for your people.
Yeah, and I think because you were focusing on survey, does that mean that when they come back with objections, you've studied them or you've studied something?
Right.
Like, how is it that survey lets you overcome this?
Because I actually throw out, I picked up the, 2 or 3 historical facts of each of the religion, like the classic moment that such and so happened. And so I can actually be like, you may say this is true, but consider what happened when your church itself faced the great schism. In that moment, how was it repaired? Only because Saint Benefict of the something. And there's a certain point where I'm like, if they ask me like a follow-up, I'm big trouble because I've run out of my Wikipedia level knowledge of this stuff.
Right.
But I do know the basics. I mean, I do know the basics of struggling with faith and trying, that sort of thing. So, but it's not incredibly deep knowledge. It's, just enough to get me in trouble.
And you can see when these faith leaders are throwing out crap arguments, right? Because you can see the weakness in an argument.
Yeah.
And so when they throw weak shit at you, you can identify it and kind of try to push through.
Right.
And with a bit of additional work and, maybe if you're spending influence, like that's like calling in a couple of favors, right? You're able to make this happen. How well do you think this event goes off? Is that something that you want to like dictate? Is it something we should roll about?
Well, I mean, I think with the 6 and the 5, it feels to me like, with the 6 in particular, it feels to me like I think probably my guess is when I think of using influence, part of what I'm doing is sort of pulling on my, me, I don't just come here once a year for Vespers, right? I come in, I'm here all the time. I'm in the community all the time. I'm in the neighborhood all the time. Like, I've conducted myself with honor. Like, I'm pulling a lot on the sort of like I respect the faith communities of Valloward type of thing, and like I know how they work. So my guess is that they probably work. I would say the meeting comes off reasonably well, where at the very least they're not going to kind of actively sabotage each other. And they're going to be like, okay, fine, you need to use my sanction. Like, probably what they'll do is they'll want to be like, of course, we are very proud at the Church of the Gods of the such and so, which you can find at, 35 Faith Avenue or whatever. Like, I'm sure that there's promotion going on, but at least they're not going to actively try to undercut it. That would be what I would say, unless you want to roll for, but that would what I would do. I'm an influencer, right, Dragon? Yeah, exactly.
I'm happy to kind of basically anchor off of that, but I am curious to just make a fortune roll, because if we get a 4 or 5, that doesn't tell me as much, but if we get an extreme result, that's maybe some fiction that can move forward. So that's a 6 and a 1, and we take the higher result here because I'm rolling basically the one of these churches' tiers.
Okay.
Like, how effective is this event? And on a 6, it's fairly effective. So you have this thing that you can point to, right? This is what Father Cartagena was asking, which is like a first step toward broader kind of interfaith cooperation.
Can I add something into that? When we're doing this, as I'm kind of going around from like, I'm now thinking of like some enormous pancake breakfast, right? Where you're going around from table to table. But as people are doing this and it's a success where like, these things were brought in, I also want to be able to kind of talk to the people about like encouraging them to see themselves as a unit, a group of people that exist not in separate factions or separate homes, but as part of a collective family that need to be heard within the walls of Valloward. And the principle of this is, I basically would like to have a situation where, for their own protection and also for the benefit of House Forster eventually, I'm like a people's army, like an opportunity of an army of, and I mean army. I'm not overdoing the military too much, but an army of, if you will, the downtrodden, the ones who struggle. I'm thinking of getting a group of people who start to see themselves not as individuals that society has repeatedly spit on, but as members of a group that can band together for common purpose and support each other in that way.
So like an interfaith faction alliance.
Yes. And I guess the idea is, because I have this image that down the line we may need that. Okay. That House Forster can't handle all this themselves. And also Carevis has had this, I remain completely loyal to House Forster, but Carevis has felt like there are cracks in the house system that people fall through all the time. And that there may be moments where we can't just intrigue or like influence or whatever our way out of something. And we'll need a moment where something exists outside the house structure.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a very cool angle we can pursue.
Okay.
And I feel like that will be able to intersect with like the intrigue that Zelpha is working on, and like questions about housing. And that's very interesting to like. Part of it I have already seeded because I'm pursuing my own aesthetic interests as a creator. But it's very fun to find places where this intersects with what you all are interested in with your own characters. Mm-hmm. Because the idea that we could combine like, okay, here's like fun interscene house intrigue, swashbuckling and magic stuff, but it's not totally divorced from the material concerns of the people who live around these characters.
And especially not for Carevis, who is trying not to become... Carevis is not becoming disillusioned with House Forster. Carevis is beginning to think more broadly than House Forster, or rather, the honor that House Forster possesses should be extended to others like the people. Part of this is because of his being pissed off about the ballad going around that claims that they wiped out this group of innocent eels and all that nonsense. And this is partly a reaction to that, I think, a little bit, where it's just like, no, this is not the houses ignore the, like, that's not what this is. Like, there are some who do care about the poor, but sometimes we have to work outside the structure, to kind of get there. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. We are at 9:30, and I think we're going to go for a little bit shorter session tonight. So why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll come back with a few more downtime actions and a couple of scenes and see what you all want to get up to throughout the rest of this session. As we say here, a break for us is a break for you. So while we are attending to our own needs, please attend to yours. Use the restroom, get a beverage, check in with people, move around in whatever way is going to help you stay healthy. I definitely need to get up and stretch when I'm doing, a long RP session. So that's what we'll be up to. And we'll be back in a couple minutes.
See you in a bit. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back. And my apologies that the music, I forgot to loop the music when we went on break. So you heard it once and then it was like, okay, we're just going to sit here in silence after that. So my apologies. I hope everyone took their break and enjoyed themselves and are back ready to go as we head back over to reveal our crew. And we are back and ready to go. And also hi to Emily. Thank you for the resub and welcome, Emily, and welcome everybody who is back watching as we try to feed the people and fight the man. I think favorite scenarios for everyone. Mike, over to you.
All right. So this is a downtime session, and we have most of the group, but not everybody. So far, we've had Zelpha working to address some community problems with that various Dialta communities are working with, and introduced a new contact. We've seen Carevis working with Father Cartagano and putting a bunch of effort in to pull off the interfaith food aid event that he started working on in the previous downtime. And we had Jensia's former / current mentor, Owen, coming to her asking for assistance in getting his job back at the Academy Valloward, where it seems like somebody in one of the major houses has pulled some strings to get Owen's job and kind of the seat given to another scholar by the name of Ulysses. But I think if it's okay, Rhiannon, we can start with Jensia.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you like to do first? Do you want to have that kind of scene talking with the others or do a downtime action?
I'd want to talk to the others because Jensia has no idea where to start.
Okay, yeah.
And she has too few stress to indulge, so.
Okay.
Let's balcony it up.
Yeah. Did you want to go with that kind of the balcony meeting place idea?
Let's do it.
Yeah, we don't have to, by the way. I'm just enamored of the idea of the balcony.
Yeah. So yeah, how does Jensia kind of frame this to the others?
Well, she's trying to keep it sort of like low key. So like usual, when at these sort of like gatherings, she's working on like spell components to keep her hands busy.
Okay.
But so she'll sort of start with, hey, has anybody heard any rumors about, the other major houses? Good, try to get, academic chairs in, and any rumors about that, maybe?
Rumors about academic chairs?
So one of my professors, he's also in the history department, and he lost his job, and he thinks it was because of one of the great houses pulling strings, but I don't know where to begin well, he wants his job back. I don't know if that's possible, but I don't know even where to begin to find out which major house.
Okay. I imagine I have like a little glass of some kind of wine, right? That I'm sort of I don't suppose you've watched this person's class. Perhaps he just forgot how to teach. It could happen sometimes. You get out of practice. Maybe. I'm sure there must be a reason. Perhaps he was spreading propaganda, and we can't have professors doing that. No, I'm sorry. Just kidding. I thought for a moment I thought I was in Florida, Valloward, Chad, and I certainly don't want that. No, but I would actually say something. I did say the thing about the teaching, though. Like maybe he's, do you know you can trust this person fully?
If an academic trained Jensia, I trust that academic.
Well, but Jensia is exceeded beyond anything, of course. Jensia is the best knack in Valloward. Everyone knows that, but that's on her own work.
But perhaps the more important thing is I also know the one who replaced him, and he is good at research, not very good at teaching. It doesn't really make sense as an appointment for Ulysses to replace him. And she always has her bag of like stuff, and she's going to pull out. I'm assuming that Owen could have sent her some of the notes that he said he was, and she's going to pull it out. And there's already the sense that like she is reading between the lines, because Owen was talking about like what was Ulysses doing at Colloquia and etc. And Jensia is very much more sort of like, what was Owen saying at Colloquia that could have pissed somebody off?
Right.
Are there like, do you have, did he send along like his like collection of conference proceedings? Can we please do that? Like,
it's been long enough since I was in academia that I'm going to ask you to explain what that means.
Okay, I'm going to do more than that. I'm actually going to get it.
You're going to get one?
Yes.
Okay. This is very funny. I don't know that I specifically hoped for this when I came up with like an academic drama plot line to throw at the group, but I didn't not want this.
Well, and just so my card's on the table, I was a terminal MA, which is very sort of like, I'm sorry, ma'am, your MA is terminal. Right. So I sort of like busted out the doors and never looked back. So
yeah, the MA, or in the university where I did my MA in folklore, there was no PhD in folklore. There was a PhD with a folklore emphasis that you could do in the English department, but it was not viewed as like a contiguous thing. You know, it's like, well, you could go over here and do that thing, and it's still sort of working with us, but it's not really the same thing. And then I applied to PhD programs for like 3 years running and never got in. And now here I am without massive amounts of additional student loan debt.
I can't find my conference. I was going to find one. There was a conference on the nature of evil that I went to a number of years ago. Conference proceedings are basically just, so I brought coincidentally my book, but I brought a academic book. So typically these things are, a lot of them tend to be monographs where it's just, single author type of thing, at least in the humanities. But there are conference proceedings where you basically go to an academic conference, and then some of the best papers that were delivered at that conference are assembled together into a kind of published work, which can sometimes then become a monograph, or can become part of a sort of more standard essay collection / submitted to journals and things like that. But it's one of those things that people pull out in certain contexts where they're like, well, I had a lot of stuff done because I showed up in a conference proceedings. And you're like, you could have bound that at Kinko's though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it's not that there's no prestige, but it's not like when the person is like, this is the coolest, this is the big thing I'm relying on. You're kind of like, well, I don't know that that's the biggest thing that would exist. Right. So I was just questioning, I guess, the quality of the guys, the impact of the work. The significance is always the term that gets used.
Yeah. I think there's certainly a number of ways you can analyze that. Given what you've been talking about, I think a study role is probably going to be the most effective if you're relying just on this material to try to get something. But if you have an idea for another approach you might want to take, I'm very happy to hear it.
Well, so Jensia's idea, which is probably not a great idea, but she's going to float it in case like y'all talk her out of it, is to sort of kill two birds with one stone. And she's always trying to keep on top of like new magic research, is to sort of like go around the lower ranked knacks in the other major houses and try to like talk about new magic, but then also talk about sort of any rumors that might bear on sort of academic topics at the same time.
Okay.
And for her, that would be fun. And she sort of feels like guilty, like I'm going to go have fun and also accomplish something, but maybe it would work.
I mean, if you can make work fun, then that it doesn't make it not work.
Could you go to a conference of NACS or the equivalent? Like, I'm not really joking. I mean, could you? That's the kind of thing where you could also then talk it over with people who are just like, true. Hey, you hear what's going on over at Hofstra? Well, I don't know, but Fordham said this. You know what I mean?
Like being Valloward, there would absolutely be fairly frequent colloquia or equivalents in terms of like, oh yes, this person from visiting scholar A is coming and they're going to be introduced by local scholar B, and then there's like a Q&A, and then somebody's going to like stand up at the Q&A and ask a question that's so long and involved that they might as well be involved in the event itself because they have something that they really want to try to prove.
A comment than a question.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yep.
So yeah, if you wanted to gather information at some event like that, we can totally do it.
Okay.
So what action do you think that would be for getting information out of your colleagues?
I mean, she has more in survey, which to me seems applicable because she's sort of trying to take a little bit of information from a bunch of different conversations as opposed to going a deep dive in any.
Sure. So it's one way I might pitch survey is that Jensia attending to the social dynamics of a scene really closely in terms of like, okay, who seems deferential to who is name dropping who, versus if it were consort, we might focus more on Jensia like trying to lead the conversation herself.
I see.
Does that seem like
and so then survey would be probably what she would be going with.
Okay. Are you bringing somebody along with you to try to do this, or is this kind of just Jensia flying solo?
She'll certainly invite people. She might try to pitch it to Zelpha that like you can find out cool magic stuff. It will be really jargony and boring, but
right. And then because we've already seen some conversations in terms of like Jensia and Zelpha's relationship to one another and their relationship to various magical traditions. So some people might cast aspersions at Zelpha, but it doesn't mean that they're right. It probably means more that they're like territorial and don't like that maybe Zelpha knows things that they don't. So that's up to you, Brandon, if you think Zelpha would go along for this.
Zelpha is of two minds. So I feel like being asked, I will turn to Jensia and go, on the one hand, I think it would be a lot of fun to catch academic magicians off guard with all of the secret things that I'm sure if I confess to them, they would say are untrue or unfathomable.
And I'm like,
but on the other hand,
as I lean back with my cocktail.
Do you think that I would actually help your investigation if all I did was make some second-year knacks feel inferior to the altar magic? I'd probably annoy them to the point where they'd not want to talk to you. That probably wouldn't help.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true.
I'm sorry. Next time when you're just visiting, I will definitely join you, but I don't want to spoil your fun today.
So I'm like, all right. Apparently, I'm going to have to go to this thing and watch and see what these people do. And I can tell you whether or not they're full of it, whether they're attempting to feint before a thrust or a riposte, or whether any of them are going to get into an actual fight. Do they ever actually get into a fight? Do any of these people actually ever fight? Do they throw books at each other, or what do they do? Do they ever?
I have to imagine that there are duels over points of academic pride.
It's like
in this kind of setting, right?
At very least, shoving matches.
There was definitely a time a mathematician cut off another mathematician's nose. I'm sure of it.
So I like slowly stand and heavily sigh, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch children at play. And I kind of turn around and I'm like, where is this thing? Can I bring my sword?
I don't think it's expressly forbidden.
All right. Then I express no forbidding.
Upon, but
Stink, I'm not going to go with the full armor, though. I'm just sorely tempted to do so and be that person who shows up at everyone we're in the front row with their arms folded like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, and say nothing until the end of the panel where they're just like, good job, or something like that, right?
Yeah, because Carevis does not have the honor guard ability that allows you the privilege of wearing your weapon openly anywhere. But I think this is one of the places where it's okay if you show up with the courtly blade. If you show up with a dread blade, I feel like people would ask questions.
I'm here for the panel. Sting, sitting at the floor. Oh my God.
My Lord Bravo, why do you have a sword that's as tall as you are?
I'm going to cut your arguments to pieces. No, no, yeah, courtly blade it is. That's fine. I'll be on my best behavior. I am, jokes aside, if I can assist Jensia with like if I can assist Jensia with the survey, although if I stress myself out, then I'm losing the effect of what we just did. But my point is, I don't know whether I can be of assistance in surveying, because at the very least, I can sense if there is actual tension going on between peoples, and that might be the one,
Yeah.
thing.
So you could absolutely spend 1 stress and give an assist on survey. The question I will ask Rhiannon is, do you want to tackle this overall challenge as a downtime project? Do you want to try to have it be something that the group attends to in an errand? What ultimately does Jensia want to accomplish?
So I'm thinking
proceeding toward.
Yeah, downtime project. Because I don't have anything else lined up particularly for this downtime. And I think that she views it as good for her to like get her nose out of the book a little bit.
Okay. So I'm going to say that addressing this whole situation is going to be a 6 clock. So that is a 6 segment project. I'm just made a new clock. And I've got that on this clock's page here in the Roll20 that you should be able to see. So if you're spending a downtime action and you're rolling with survey, then Carevis' assist is free, does not cost a stress, because that's an ally assisting you in a downtime action. And you would make a fortune roll using your survey with 1 bonus die.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, are your clocks, by the way, do you have them labeled for you? Because we just see the clocks by themselves. I mean, it's fine, but they just seem like random clocks. So I sometimes don't know what each clock means.
Okay. The nameplate. So I have the nameplate turned on.
Yeah, it's not
Maybe
showing
I
up
have
here.
them on. Let's see. What if I put it on the token layer?
That could be. I don't see it yet.
Got him.
Oh, you do?
They're
so this is
looking at it. They're over to the more of the.
So on the right.
Right.
If you scan toward the right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are these ones to the left? Are they?
I think that's just stuff that's just there, and I haven't been doing anything with them.
Oh.
So
okay.
Zalia calls in a favor, Sapphire Fallout, and then below and slightly to the left is the intrigue.
Look at all this. I think I never zoomed. I think I just didn't go over to this side. We were like a what session? I had no idea that all this stuff was available. It's a whole new world. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Now I can actually see.
Okay. So we're just going to do that. I'm going to put all these on the token layer, and then I'm going to move my thing. So those should be visible. Somehow not all of them are showing up anyway, but this new 6 o'clock is for this project. And Rhiannon, you are welcome to roll whenever you like. This is something you can push yourself for, but that's quite expensive. You could instead spend 1 influence to gain a bonus die, or you can spend an influence after your roll to improve your result level.
And this, I'm rolling using the roll fortune button rather than
yes. So you can do that, or use the action, but then click roll as fortune, is what Greg was saying. Is the save. Great.
Hey.
So on a 6, you will fill 3 segments in this 1 roll. So I think it becomes evident fairly quickly that that Ulysses has family connections in House Corinne, and that House Corinne, as respected patrons of education in Valloward, have a great deal of influence with the Academy. There have been a lot of members of House Corinne that are like guest lecturers and visiting visiting professors, where it's like they have the I teach one class a semester, but I'm getting paid really well because I'm prestigious.
I don't know anyone like that either.
It maintains their connections with the great houses and things like that. So between a number of conversations, overhearing things, and then seeing the way people defer to and seek out the company of and approval of scholars like Ulysses and a few others that or are able to learn are connected to House Corinne, puts this into context. So who did it. You have a good sense of how it was that they did it, because they were able to draw on existing status and long-time relationships, where boards of trustees and all that kind of stuff. So there's institutional tools and levers that have been utilized, but it's not necessarily something that cannot be undone or cannot be manipulated by someone else. So that's a good amount of progress just in one action. So we still have at least one action for Jensia, and then I know that Carevis wanted to do one more. Do we want to stay on this with another beat?
Yeah, let's. I think so, unless Brendan or Rhiannon have an objection. I would stay on this for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that information, what do you think your next step is?
Well, she's gonna again consult with Carevis. Maybe pull him aside at the coffee hour.
Right, I was gonna say, because I've been right type of thing. Where I pick up the thing and I'm just like, although I probably do like the coffee hour, but yes. So you pull me aside.
So knowing this, I would, if possible, like to get Owen his job back, or a job back. And I'm not sure how to go about that.
Who's the person who got rid of him in the first place?
House Corinne.
No, but I mean...
Oh, the Ulysses.
No, I mean, who's the person who was responsible on the university level for the decision? Was it the dean, the chairperson, head teacher, something like that? A board member? We go after the link that is weakest before we go after House Corinne.
Owen's notes would indicate that Professor Cherevet is the kind of chair of the department currently.
Cherevet. Okay. So then if you know that, I would be like, if I were you, I would speak to this Professor Cherevet.
And say...
And
you have taken my friend's job, give it back?
No, ask him to explain what exactly was the motivation behind doing it. You press slightly, and then a little more on the weakest link in the chain until the chain breaks. Either he admits that he was pushed by House Corinne, or he stands strong, or he changes his decision. But either way, we need to find out why. If it was arbitrary, did anyone else have to agree to it or sign off on it? But he's the one you have to find out. Who put the pressure on him to make the change? Is what I would say. Is what Carevis would say.
Would he be at this colloquium?
Let's say yes, just for simplicity's sake and being able to kind of keep this, basically stay in the scene that we've had a little bit of a montage, and then we're at one of these events. Where Jensia and Carevis are there, and we've just had this conversation. And Professor Cherevet is over on another side of the room with a couple of younger scholars, kind of not full on holding court as an academic superstar, but more like these scholars know that this is the person that they need to go to, or that they need a good relationship with to be able to call in a favor.
Okay. And he's probably got a plate of 2 of those mini donuts. So I like the idea that if we walked over to him, I would just have this, Jensia probably is looking very professional, and I have a plate of 12 mini donuts stacked up behind, as we walk up.
My lord, I'm very glad that you're enjoying the festivities. What brings you here today? Jensia, is this a friend of yours?
We work together, and all of my coterie, I'm trying to get them to be more educated, more understanding, not just acting as bravos. Um, and being here, this knowledge has been a great thing to help with that. And so she's going to butter him up for a while.
Okay. And I think Chervais starts asking Carevis about this world's equivalent to Agrippa, who Camillo Agrippa was a Italian fencing scholar whose work was fairly foundational, and
you were using Agrippa's defense against me,
right? Huh? Several diverging styles trace like some lineage of scholarship back to Agrippa, and so basically he's calling out to a place where history and your work intersect. And asks, let's see, what should this scholar's name be in our world?
Montoya, obviously.
Okay. Yes. So as to not get sued, it's going to be Alfonso Montoya.
Alfonso Montoya, yes. You killed my cousin. Prepare to be hurt.
And I'm very curious, Mr. Carevis, how you find the political situation in Montoya's home to have informed the way that he presented his scholarship, and if there is perhaps some kind of oral tradition that is regarded as being supplementary to the folios that he's left to us.
I kind of looked this guy up and down. Do I, and I can make a roll if you need me to do that, just very quickly. Mm-hmm. Do I get the sense that this guy is putting me on? Like, is this guy trying to call me out or trying to butter me up, or is legitimately like, oh, look, it's a swordsman. I've always wanted to speak to swordsmen. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
I think more you get the sense that he's trying to identify whether you are a jock or whether you are like a swordsman and a scholar.
Okay. So I'm going to do this quick because I don't want to take the focus off Jensia, but I will say, and I kind of, finish the last of my 12th mini donut. And I'm like, because all this time he was setting me up, I was just like, eating it right all the way down. I'm like, well, here's the thing about Montoya. You know that he didn't survive to write a second book, right? Do you know why?
Well, in that time, the state of medicine was rather primitive compared to what we have in Valloward here today.
Yes, he had a very difficult time because of the state of medicine surviving a sword run right through his heart. Because once he wrote that book, everyone wanted to challenge him. And if his defense had been as good as he claimed, he would probably still be alive to be speaking to us today, or at least his descendants would be. The problem with Montoya is too much time in the book, not much time enough on the practice ground. I myself believe that training and education is important. Much more important is practice. I can tell you how I'd win a sword fight because I've actually won one.
Yes, well, Jensia, would it not be rather more entertaining if scholars were required to defend their theses by the blade, and then like, oh. So he's redirecting to Jensia, to a place where he feels like more comfortable in his own domain.
Exactly, because, and I get into a flanking position. No, I'm just kidding.
So Jensia, does your work with House Vorster leave you much time to pursue original research?
Oh, certainly, all the time. I'm doing any amount of research, but I hear that Owen, that there was some problem, which surprised me because I know the quality of Owen's work, and so I said to myself that there must be something that I didn't know about that was going on that contributed to him no longer. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like Chervais' body language kind of freezes up when you mention Owen.
It does.
And he says, "Yes, well, that was a rather unfortunate matter. As you've not had the pleasure of serving as a department chair as of yet, perhaps that is in your future, a fate I do not wish upon you, though it comes with some perks. I've never been quite so popular since I moved into that office. Well, I'm afraid that in the everyday workings and the maintenance of a department's reputation and their connections, there are a wider variety of factors which must be considered when determining how chairs and positions and allotments are to be assigned. And was the evaluation of the departmental board that Professor Ulysses was better suited to serve the department in the role that had previously been occupied by your former professor. It's just, some things are bigger than any given factor.
I think I would probably whisper to Jensia, who's on this board. I don't know if Jensia would know that herself, but
would she? I mean, I think she would.
Yeah, it's several professors, including emeritus professors and like emeritus professors that are not retired, but they are no longer actively involved. And some of those are the people with house connections, so I would say not Lobelia Corinne, but another knack of Corinne is on that board, who, is not actively teaching, but maintains relationships with, especially like the School of Magic that Jensia was a part of.
Well, certainly in the conversation, Jensia would sort of do one of those things where it's like, oh yes, the board, and sort of like name drop each of them and sort of like as part of talking about it.
Yeah.
So that she's answering for Carevis, but it seems to be part of the conversation. Right. And she's also going to watch Chevray to see like when she mentions particular board members, if he has any reaction there, if she can like trace it.
I'm just making a note. So the board member who is that kind of Corinne emeritus is Boreas, who uses he, she, or they pronouns. And Boreas is obviously the person that Chervais cares the most about what
Boreas,
what they think. She has the most influence because a lot of the other ones are colleagues and Chervais has to worry about them, but not in the same way.
And Jensia would know of this, or would somehow get this from Chervais. I'm just curious about.
I think Boreas would be well known enough to Jensia.
Okay.
Like, oh, okay. Well, if Boreas is on the board right now, then like that could certainly explain some things, but it doesn't solve the problem. It just puts a clearer point on it.
Okay.
Well, I think at that point, Jensia would sort of wrap the conversation.
Okay.
Unless Carevis is elbowing her to do anything else.
No, I've pulled out at this point 2 more secret mini donuts from an undisturbed pocket, and so I kind of at them like. Oh.
So this is the this is the snacking equivalent of the scene when the fighter is getting disarmed and there's extra weapons.
Yeah, exactly. So because I just have like secret donuts from all spots, and just like and good luck with your Montoya if you can find his grave is over in the grave district there.
Okay. Do you all want to kind of pursue this with another downtime action? Do we want to represent this conversation as a downtime action and make progress there? Because if you want to do that, we can certainly broaden that action into this conversation and some other stuff.
It's up to Jensia, but it does feel to me a little bit like you got what is it, 3 ticks, Rhiannon, I think, on the clock.
Yeah.
So that's also sort of seems to fit into that mode that, you have this discussion with him that gives us more information that the real person to go talk to is at some point is Boreas, boredom-is guy. She Bordy, that she would be the one to speak to. So, it seems like there was progress made. I don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think we don't have to continue into the Boreas scene next. We can jump to something else, but that would be where Jensia would be going next. So.
Okay. What other downtimes do folks want to do before we wrap up tonight? I know we've got Carevis talking to the voice.
Yeah, and so much for my stress. It's gonna be an interesting, stressful season because I'm gonna go in probably with 4 stresses, my guess. But yeah, that's the only one. That's the one I'd want to do is talk to the voice.
Okay. If that's the case, if you wanted to do another downtime on this, Rhiannon, I think we can stay with it.
Okay. Yeah. So she's going to find Boreas to sort of talk knack to knack if she can.
Yeah. So I think Boreas is, so conveniently, because you made a good impression on Lobelia, I think going to house or like getting a connection so that you can get an appointment with Boreas is not very hard. But I think Boreas would receive you at some slightly like, what if a kitschy cafe was for fancy magic people? And so like it's the equivalent, it's the fantasy Renaissance equivalent of like a Hell's Kitchen, very modern, like fancy wood and steel and like exposed light bulb kind of cafe, but it's like upscale kind of magical fixtures and various knickknack, like what if you had a bunch of like magical knickknack stuff, but it's all actually real? And it's just like, it's not excessive. It's not like Applebee's level. But it's, there's a lot of little bits and pieces here and there.
You can't go from like cafe and Hell's Kitchen to Applebee's without a clutch. Like, Jesus Christ.
And so
welcome to Magic Bees.
I think for someone who is attuned to magic, it's a little bit like taking tea at a loud club. And you might wonder if part of why Boreas chose this is that she's much more used to this than you might be. And so you're having a conversation while having to filter out a lot of things. And I'm curious what Jensia's approach is here with this conversation.
Well, she's definitely wearing gloves.
Okay.
And a little uncomfortable with them. So when she starts drinking her tea, they will probably come off for the dexterity.
Sure.
But she was wearing them. And so I think her approach is going to be sort of speaking about Owen in terms of how his approach to teaching helped her. And she's essentially, I think, gonna like suggest that he would be an asset to House Corinne.
Okay.
If they wanted to bring him into the fold and sort of come at it from that direction.
Interesting. All right.
She should have asked him first, but here we are.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I think pretty quickly in the conversation, you get the sense that Boreas is more interested in you than what you have to propose. But the fact that he is interested in you gives you some leverage that you can like redirect. And especially because you and Owen have this like personal academic relationship, I think that's something that you're able to build on. I'm curious what action are you going to be rolling to try to like convince Boreas and make this new position happen?
Well, she doesn't have any sway, and she
Mm-hmm.
has one consort, so I'm going to turn it towards the consort.
Okay, yeah, I think consort is very sensible here.
Yeah, building that relationship rather than trying to directly persuade.
Yeah. And again, with influence, you can spend 1 influence to gain a die for the roll, or you could spend an influence after the roll to improve the result level. So if you rolled 1 die and got a 4, it would go 2 ticks. You could spend more and more influence to fill the clock. So it's a little bit of 6 of one, half dozen the other, whether it's better to spend the influence ahead of time.
I think I'll roll and then see where we are.
Sure thing. Because you can also spend influence for yet another roll. So that often ends up being better unless you just want to finish the clock in one go. Okay, so we're going to get a fortune roll with 1 die for Jensia's consort.
I think.
Okay, so that on a 5, that would fill 2 ticks, and you could spend an influence to put that up to 6, or you could be spending influence for another action. It kind of is 6 of one, half dozen the other, if you want to finish that.
I mean, I think I'll spend it to get it to 6 to finish it out.
Great. So you're able to speak at length about kind of Owen's accomplishments, and based on your familiarity with how he teaches, that Corinne is, Boreas says, well, we are quite fortunate in Corinne that we are able to hire a great number of NACs given our reputation, and have the infrastructure to support a number of young scholars in their arcane research, and keep the oracles well supplied with plentifruit. I'm very happy to take a meeting with this Owen. We've had passing conversations at various conferences and presentations, but I don't think I'd given him a proper look based on your glowing recommendation. And we can montage out to, you can tell Owen about this, prep Owen for this. Owen goes and does the meeting. Owen does a good enough job, which I think in afterwards you'll be able to learn that Boreas had Owen come in and teach a lesson on magical history to Corinne's kind of young class of NACs, and that was in fact the thing that convinced her to give Owen a position. I don't know that it's necessarily as prestigious a position, but it's prestigious in a different way because it brings Owen into the great game, the great dance of houses. And so it means that Oren is kind of more in your sphere now, in a way that is both good and bad, because working for a different house, but access to a different house. So is there anything else that you would want to kind of add, or a detail, or some bit that you would like to do as we kind of wrap this subplot up?
I think that she would send Owen some kind of congratulations gift.
Sure.
Some kind of little like box that when it opens, a little spell goes off, and a little fireworks or something.
Okay.
And it's definitely going to be sort of half kind of sardonic, congratulations, now you're gonna have interesting times kind of thing. So.
Right. And as established earlier, Owen was not great at departmental politics, and now he's in a great house.
But he asked for his job back, and that's what she got him. So
yeah. And I think you receive in response, very, very shortly after that box, a note of gratitude where the text kind of animates in a way that suggests that he is quite nervous about this, but he is genuinely grateful for your intercession on his behalf. Okay. Cool. Well, that the way that ended up, this character is still very much in play for the rest of the campaign in a way that I find very useful to me. So thank you. Let us go over to Brandon. Do you want to do some more downtime since we haven't seen Zelpha as much in the last few minutes?
So I have one more downtime action.
Okay.
And I'd like to actually do my intrigue now.
Great. So what is your next step in foiling Aquili?
So, knowing that the last time I interacted with this problem, I was beset by thugs while attempting to actually go to um the magistrate's office. I imagine the best way to offset this problem and perhaps earn some goodwill without being distracted is to make a private appointment with the magistrate elsewhere.
Okay. I think that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't think takes a roll, because then I can be curious in kind of what your approach or what your pitch is. So you've got so a meeting with a magistrate. We're probably talking about like a public building. It's not going to be like the high court building. It's going to be basically the equivalent of like a borough court, since Valloward is a big enough city that it's going to have kind of a couple of supplementary court buildings. And so this is probably the one in like the northeast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to come up with another character. So much of this work is just inventing a person in the moment. So this is Thalias Orn. I'm gonna copy the name in here for you. And Thalias is like a recent Rontis immigrant.
Okay.
Who has basically went into public service and kind of got up to this point of not being super high ranked, but far enough up the ladder to be a good person to talk to about this.
Nice. So are we having an official court address, or am I in Orn's private quarters?
I think
private chambers is the word I'm looking for.
The latter is easier versus getting officially on Orn's docket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I figured. So I enter Orn's chambers. Hi, good day. Your Honor, I was wondering if it was possible that I could have a moment of your time to speak about some of the proceedings regarding some of the local Dialta in the east and northeast. There have been some.
Yes, you, Miss Hamill, I think my secretary mentioned something about your repeated inquiries.
Yes, Zelpha Hamill, Your Honor. Thank you so very much for giving me your time. It's been,
yes. Go ahead and come in. Please take a seat.
Thank you very much. So I have all of the details with me, and I present several stacked folders of documents. And they're all available for your perusal. But to save you some time, some local Dialta have been struggling with some housing issues regarding some extra legal banking behavior that I would like to officially open investigations into and open actual indictments regarding. I've been having some difficulty scheduling appointments to talk to other legal representatives, so I'm very glad that I got the opportunity to speak to you personally to make sure that this injustice could be resolved.
Yeah, and so Orn is picking through your paperwork. Who are you alleging is behind this extra legal activity, Ms. Hamill?
The Bank of Valloward is going out of its way at the behest of one individual staff member in particular um, to financially cut off local Delta at the heels when it comes to uh, paying rent, obtaining loans for housing, and maintaining the financial upkeep of the territories where they actually do live. And I'm in the process of properly ensuring that Supervisor Quilly in particular is properly investigated and charged. But in the process of doing so, several weeks ago, uh, some, how do I say, enforcers on Aquili's payroll interrupted my last attempt to actually enter the main magistrate's office. So I'm here now in the hopes of getting some part of the ball rolling so I can at least ensure that some of my neighbors can actually be housed while the rest of this investigation is underway.
I see. And Miss Hamill, do you make it a habit to climb mountains whilst rocks are being thrown down at you? Because that's what you're asking me to do.
Your Honor, I do not want to be presumptuous, but if you mind me asking, what was it like the very first day that you moved to Valloward?
And I think when you ask that, there's a bit of a softening of his demeanor, and they kind of lean back and reach for a pitcher, which the drink that he has is not, it's not that Dialta specific traditional drink. It is, I think, a more general common drink in the archipelago. So it's probably some other type of like fruit juice, and pours another glass of this and takes a long sip and says, I was 15. And I thought that if I got to Valloward, the whole world would open up for me. What I found was a city that's big, crowded, and doesn't like making space for people like me. And your people have had to make space as well for yourselves. And I respect that. I understand that there are a number of systems in place to keep everyone but the Vallowed in their place, as the Vallowed would say. So I'm sympathetic to this issue, and I am fairly appalled at these charges that you're leveling, which I'm not saying are or aren't true. My question, Miss Hamill, is, do you want to take this on in truth, knowing that it could ruin you, it could get people killed, and that you're asking me to stick my neck out? Is this worth going about things this way? Or does it make more sense to just take care of your people and keep your head down?
The honest answer to your question is yes, it would make more sense to keep my head down.
I sense there's a but coming.
A large one. Justice isn't conditional. You don't deserve to lack it, and neither does my kin. If the Bank of Valloward would have it so that any citizen, at the whim of a man they haven't met, can wake up the next morning and learn that they are without a home, that they and their infant children will starve in the dusty street, and that the option is for the rest of us to scrape pennies and hope that it can rent an apartment for 1 more month. You're asking me to choose which of my neighbors deserves to die. And the answer to that question is I will not choose. I understand that it will be difficult for you, and if that is obviously going to be difficult for you, I would at least ask that you can put me in contact with someone who can perhaps assist me in this regard without this concern. But at the very least, I would like to compel you that, by your own admission, you have been one of these people. And that means that you have earned this position now to see justice done. Knowing that it would be difficult, but knowing that it is, in fact, worth doing. Or else, if I may dare say so, you would have been a baker instead.
So what action are you using on the intrigue here?
This is a strong sway. Oh my god.
Sure
Skirmish.
sounds like a sway.
It's totally skirmish.
Oh my god.
So
drop gloves. Let's go.
It feels like a good time to roll for me, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. So this is the part where I ask you to qualify a thing that the rules as written of Court of Blades is not exactly overt about. Mm-hmm. Is an intrigue a long-term project by definition?
So, yeah, any ability that you have that applies to a long-term project will apply here.
Cool. Attention to detail gives me plus 1D.
Right. Intrigues are listed as a separate thing, but to me, they are a special type of project. An intrigue is a special long-term clock. So the text kind of conveys that, but intrigues have position. And so I think this is a risky standard intrigue.
I see that I've been inspired by a Rhiannon.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rhiannon, you do actually, if you want to redeem channel points, which obviously you have plenty of, I think those channel point inspirations have not been used this month. So you could do that, Rhiannon, if you want. There you go.
Look at that.
It immediately does.
Okay. Booyah.
So I think what I've done with inspiration on Forged games before is a plus 1D and plus 1 effect. So that would take you to plus 1D risky great. And so then you would get 3 ticks on a success, and you will roll sway with plus 1 die, but this is still a risky roll. And so if you get anything below a 6, I will probably add 2 ticks to the clock. The bank wins.
Cool. So that means
you do get that bonus die from the inspiration. And thank you for the inspiration, Rhiannon.
Thanks, Rhiannon.
Thank you very much, because now I'm going to roll risky great with 2 bonus dice, 1 from you and 1 from attention to detail.
Okay. So on a 5, you will get 2 ticks. So I'm going to go 1, 2. So you're at 5 of 8. But I'm also going to add 2 ticks to failure. You can resist this.
I am very obviously resisting this.
Okay. What attribute do you think this resist is? Is this more about thinking it through, or is this about managing the social blowback, or something else?
I think this is a matter of managing the social blowback, because I imagine, based on the dialogue that we've just engaged in, that this failure point is Orn's investment in this project coming back on Orn?
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense to me, is that this could go in such a fashion that Orn can move this forward and then is out of play.
Mm-hmm. Which I definitely don't think I want to be the case in general anyway. Okay. So I'm going to resist with spirit.
Do you recall if we've done a resist on an intrigue before? I think maybe we did one the very first time.
I think we did. I can't recall.
Okay. I feel like revisiting this, because for an intrigue, being able to resist resist everything feels like a lot. So I wonder, does it feel too punishing for a resist on an intrigue to step down a consequence by one step instead of two?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
For other things, I've been using resistance steps down a consequence by two. Intrigues are fairly big here, and I want the threat of an intrigue failing to be really significant. But when you resist, you just resist. So I tick the clock back one. The question becomes, how much does it cost you?
No, do I want to push myself? I do not want to push myself.
Well, you can't push yourself on a resist.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. There's a 6.
Yeah, good time for that.
Oh my god.
So how do you protect Magistrate Orn once he so I think to return to the scene, what you get is, all right, Miss Hamill, like you said, it took a lot to get here. And I remember what it was like to be new. And I've got family who are trying to get here and don't have the means. We've got storms on the horizon, and it looks like you're trying to bring one yourself. So I'll go with you as far as I can. But I have to look out for myself and my family too.
That's fair. I'm going to offer you a thing that often most other magistrates don't accept, but Valloward, being a very strange place, is perfectly legal and available to you. Are you aware of the staff documentation clause?
I'm fairly sure that the magistrate isn't, but since it's something you're inventing, Brandon, why don't you tell us about it?
Right. So I'm pulling this one straight out of me. So Valloward jurisprudence has a statute called the Staff Documentation Clause, which says that if you use what is essentially a nom de guerre as your judge's signature for any official documentation, that documentation is still officially legally binding because that signature has officially been penned by a magistrate. And very few individual other members of legislature would ever actually be able to identify your actual handwriting anyway. The only consequence being that you can't be paid for any of the work that would be undertaken regarding the documentation itself. That staff hours for the actual adjudication of these cases, etc., would be free or very heavily subsidized as a result of not taking credit for actually signing the paperwork. So essentially, Orn can fill out all of the documents that I need officially signed under a stage name, and the only consequence is he can't accept government funds for actually taking any of these cases.
I'm just inventing a Rontis magistrate nom de guerre. So Volias Ren is the traditional Rontis kind of name that is adopted by magistrates in the kind of archipelago, at least in the this in Valloward and in the city states that share its legal jurisprudence. And so the paperwork that you're able to present is attributed to this name, and that by itself will not come all the way back to Orn. And then I think this ploy and other work are going to be able to mitigate the problems for Orn, because the bank wins clock is still advancing. But I'm not going to say that Orn is out of play here for you. So fictionally, you're able to progress there.
So, Your Honor, I'd like to clarify for you as well. Obviously, this means actual court appearances will still be difficult. But I would like to also petition for House Forster to do whatever is necessary to support you if you're willing to support me in this venture.
Wow, that is... Well, I didn't think that I was going to be able to get through my entire career without getting involved in house business. And if there was a reason to do it, I would love to see Equili squirm on the chair. Very well, Miss Hemmel.
Give you the opportunity to see it.
Let's make some trouble and climb that mountain.
Thank you for joining me up the mountain.
Okay. So...
Can I leave?
Yeah. I think maybe between now and next downtime, we can talk a little bit about some of the preliminary things so that then we can get to something closer to a climax. But before we finish, I want to hop over to Greg for an action with Carevis, if we can fit that in.
Okay. So I guess I'm going to talk to the congratulations, Bruno. Brendan now breaks a rendition of Climb Every Mountain. I guess I'll go to find this Byron guy.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever wants to come can. But I think we need to address this person.
Yeah. And so I think Byron he wouldn't call it holding court, but there's a particular corner in a piazza that is close to the largest train station in the city. So it's fairly central.
Okay.
And he is very frequently found there talking up, basically riling up a crowd. And he's not only talking shit about people. He has, other broadsheets or ballads that he's reciting or performing something from other people. He's kind of a, polymath, poet, essayist, provocateur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coffee house MC, right? I get it.
Right.
Okay. So if we go over, are Jensia or Zelpha coming or staying behind? Doesn't matter either way. I'm just curious.
I think I would come, I think I would join you.
Okay. Could see that.
All right. And are you... Go ahead.
But Jensia is happy to tag along. I don't know that she'd be of particular use, but she'd be interested. So
okay. And are you showing up in Vorster colors, very obviously?
Oh, very obviously.
Okay.
But I actually think okay. Let me rephrase that. Yes, but I think we would start with the colors covered in cloaks first. For a reason. So they're just cloaks, right? And then we go,
sure.
And this guy is holding forth and is doing what particular, at this point, is the guy working on I have a piece of performance art I'd like to share with you. Is he on that stage of the,
Well, I think it only makes sense for him to be on the kind of the track talking about Vorster. Because we are making a drama here.
Yes.
And so he has performed
The ballad. Oh, he's
the
performing
ballad.
the ballad as we speak.
Well, I think maybe he's finishing up the ballad as you walk up, and basically goes into vamping, and says, and I was there. I went to the city prison with one of the survivors who had managed to hold on to the spirit of life long enough to give testimony upon which much of my ballad is based. Eyewitness testimony from someone whose brothers and sisters and siblings in arms, yes, were their methods slightly uncouth indeed, but in this city, is it not valued? Is it not honorable to seize that which you need for yourself, to make your own glory and to plot your own course through life? And people are like, and some people are agreeing, and there's a good amount of anti-establishment sentiment in all of this that includes this idea that individual people who basically common people can make change. Like, okay. It's sort of empowering.
So we walk up and we listen to, this is the stuff that we do. And I say, I actually try to, as best as possible, kind of lower my voice and kind of make it sort of startlingly gravelly, and say something of, and I hunch over a bit, and I say, "You speak with great purpose. It sounds to me like you've lived with these people. You must know what it's like to be among them." I kind of sway back and forth a bit. And I make my voice loud enough that hopefully the crowd, and certainly he, can hear.
Oh, I do know them. I walk many paths, alleys and streets. I go up to the high hills where the great houses have their wonderful dance. I have moved through their salons. I have been a fly on the wall. I have seen them for what they are. They have no heart. They are a veneer. Their gold is a varnish. Scratch them, and they are but iron.
And so I say, when you come back to report to your people in the lows, you must go back to the places you know, your home. What streets do you come from in the lows?
And so to kind of keep the scene moving, I think if Lutris was here, he'd be able to ID this very quickly, but I think the rest of you can probably put it together quick, without too much work, that this guy is not from the lows.
I know.
But does a lot of work to know the city, and to back up his shit. And so the sense that you get is that he's not putting on an act in terms of what he believes. He just shifts stories to accomplish the things that he does believe.
Okay.
So that's where the artifice is.
But he knows that he's manipulating information. He knows he's lying, right? I mean, he may believe what he believes. This is ends justify the means, but he knows he's not actually being forthright, right?
He's certainly not telling the whole story.
Okay. So the reason I bring this up is because we go back and forth a little bit, and I get that sense, and I'm like, you were there when it happened then.
As I said, I spoke to one of the survivors of the group that operated within the lows. They were referred to as the Eels because, of course, they are people from the Sunken District, and the people among us who are from the Sunken District have had to learn how to swim through the morass, the swamp left by the nobles.
Can we have brought Petros with us?
Sure.
Okay, because Petros is in a cloak too, and so yeah. as I'm looking at like, Zelpha and Jensia right next to me, I kind of would bring him, bring forward also kind of, sort of also cloaked, and my grandson here admires the stories that you tell and knows a little bit about these eels, don't you, Sonny?
So
and
what,
I kind of and I move him forward a little bit, right?
What instruction have you given Petros? What's his part to play here?
So what I've told Petros to do is to basically kind of ask this guy more about who he spoke to in the eels, and like, sort of like, oh, I know that person. What was his name? Like stuff like that. Like, because it's very clear that this guy has knowledge that's a mile wide and an inch deep, right? So he's known enough to back it up, but he's not going to know the real details of the eels because he spoke to one guy. This is the classic, like many people have said, and actually one person has said, right? Like not many people have said, which is always the way it is. So that sort of is what I've asked Petros to do. Just sort of standing next to me, and I imagine the crowd at this point, especially when I say like, he was from the Lows and he's from the area and he knows some of the eels and he'd like to know who it was, like who's the friend and that kind of thing. Right. And hopefully coming from him trying to be as innocent as he can sound, and I'll bet Petros can sound pretty innocent, hopefully gathering credibility with the crowd and reeling in Byron here a bit, just like bit by bit.
In the interest of time, I think I'm going to abstract to the role. So I think the way to frame this is a 2 clock, and for every 2 clock you fill, you're going to basically set the voice back by a full degree. So if you get a standard effect and you leave it at that, you will have kind of mitigated the effect of this ballad. Okay. And if you go beyond that, you'll kind of put him more on his heel.
Okay.
But you'll pick an action to roll, and as a downtime action, you can get a bonus die because you have other people helping you. So what action do you think this is?
I think this is probably well, hang on a second though. Yeah, I wish I could say that. I was gonna try to make an argument about skirmishing, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I think this is sway, probably, because consort would be, no, it's not that. I think it's sway. I thought about survey, but I also don't want to become where survey becomes the catch-all phrase for every term for everything. So I think probably sway.
Yeah, sway makes a lot of sense here. So you can definitely take a bonus die. Okay. From having assistance, especially via Petros.
Okay, and then position is, sorry, what?
No position in effect for this because it's a downtime.
Oh, so we're just doing fortune roll again.
Yep. So fortune roll using your sway with 1 bonus die.
Okay, so that means we're talking 3 bonus dice. Did I get that right? Or no? Do I have 1 bonus die?
I
have 2 on sway.
So 2 in sway, 1 for having help.
3. So 3.
Yeah, so 3 total dice.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Turn that.
Okay. 1, 1, 6. So on a 6, you will kind of have the full effect, and a little bit on top of that. So Petros is able to poke holes in Byron's story. You get the reveal of, oh, well, he was there, and he tells his story about what happened and how Lutris, a retainer of the house, gave him an opportunity to turn over a new leaf, and Petros becomes enough of a flashpoint for this crowd that Byron is like set back on his heels, and when he tries to dig himself out, he does so in a way that you can just make into more of a problem for him.
Okay, right. So, and I can imagine him sort of like like, kind of like this, and I'm actually thinking, yeah, okay. So is there a point where, having done that, set him on his heels, and diminishing his influence, I would assume, with the people who will presumably go everyone and be like, did you hear what happened to Byron? Because he, type of thing, right? Just as he's sort of staggering off the stage, or the equivalent, I have the image of walking over, sort of, and saying to the crowd, for the benefit of the crowd, with Petros, like, well, thank you for listening to my grandson. And then as I come next to Byron, just slightly opening the cloak and going, and next time you spread lies about Vorster, we'll do more than simply get you off a stage. And then I quietly, but this is, again, I'm saying this to him, and then I say something the equivalent of, no, get out of here and don't embarrass yourself further.
And
I know, like, we're losing this guy as a potential, but I don't care. Like,
yeah,
this dude pissed me off.
I think he goes very quickly through surprise, fear, anger, and then fear again. Mm-hmm. And like, he starts to get ahead of steam up to be like, you see, and they're threatening me. But like, the crowd has already turned on him in this. And, people are, they're congratulating Petros as like, local boy done good.
Yeah.
Because, so many people do venerate the great houses. And Vorster is certainly going to be among the group that are venerated because of, like, tradition, reputation, and so on and so forth. And so he definitely, like, slinks off, more upset even than he was before, because you got to gloat at him and he didn't have a good retort.
I would say, if I can work the crowd, I know that this has made things even worse with him, but he irritated me. I would say to the crowd also, when they're that way, I would have whispered to Petros, let them know about the thing I told you about. And what I had told him about was the interfaith food thing. So I'd also like him to be able to kind of mention to people, House Vorster helped me and they can help you too. And I also heard that, they're trying to get a food thing together and like blah, 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 like that whole playing off the Vorster as honor thing. And I'm sorry, y'all, that this means the dude is clearly going to return as like supervillain in Act 4 or whatever. But like, it's Byron. Yeah. If we can't stop Byron, we're in the wrong business. Okay.
Right. Well, and his quote unquote, his faction is tier 1. So already a smaller, less powerful faction than your group as a coterie of Vorster. I have moved him to a -3 status, which in other games is at war.
Yeah, it's fair.
Him being angry at you does not put a press on your resources in the way that being at war in another Forge in the Dark game will.
Yeah.
But it does mean that I'm going to think about how he can come back around and make problems for you later.
I have no doubt of it. But also, this was also important, though, because we need to make sure we cannot lose the eels thing as a thing that was a net positive for Vorster. That would be worse, right? We lose that, and all of a sudden this big sort of defining event goes away and our climb becomes difficult. So I feel like it's worth it to maintain House Vorster's position, not to have this one, poet be angry at us, but like, do I want to piss off Allen Ginsberg? No, but like, seriously, like in this.
Yeah. So I think from there, I'm going to kind of pull back our cinematic camera to like a long view of the island. And at the docks, we see kind of a growing number of ships. And we see crowds of people in kind of a similar enough set of clothes that we as the audience can take these as being largely people from the same small number of places, as a number of storm refugees are coming into the island in anticipation of an especially large storm that is due in the next few days. So that will be a factor that will either delay the messengers in whatever their next errand is, or will serve as backdrop and a complicating factor Because if you just stay inside for a whole week, you're not getting anything done. And then it may be more difficult to accomplish whatever your next thing is. So we'll end on a view of dark and laden gray clouds in the distance,
with our poet stalking towards them. Good stuff.
All right. And so that has been our session of Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign. We're very grateful to a couple of Drakes, the designers of this game, for the promotional and graphics support that they've given us. They made that lovely introduction video that you saw. They gave us kind of the baseline and all the assets that you see here in our overlays that I tweaked in a couple of ways in conversation with Greg as our kind of most experienced producer for Speculate, and they've been lovely to work with. I love the crap out of this game, so get yourself a copy if you like this. I think it's a little bit less complicated in some ways than Blades in the Dark, and I find it really accessible for anybody who is really into that kind of Romeo and Juliet, Venice, kind of late 1600s into 1700s swashbuckling intrigue kind of vibe. We're bringing a particular set of touchstones and doing work with our own setting, but the setting of Ilrienne that is in this main book is really cool. And the only reason we're not using it is because I wanted to work with a bunch of fellow authors and do our own setting, because they've already done a great work creating a setting. And I know that these folks can and already have been showing that we can build our own setting that does different things and sets us up for doing different things than what the core Ilrienne setting does. And I would encourage folks who are engaging with the game to think about what they want to take from the book and build on, and where they want to kind of make space for their own creative interests in that game. And it's really a question of what kind of fun you want to have. And when I'm playing games with fellow authors, one of the types of fun that I want to have is let's make a world together. These folks have done a great job of that, working with me, for which I'm very grateful. I'm also grateful to everybody watching with us live, and to folks who are checking out the video later on Twitch or on YouTube. You can support all the work that we do at Speculate by going to patreon.com/speculate and becoming a subscriber. The GM prep that I did earlier today will be available to patrons when it shows up on YouTube tomorrow. There is a whole kind of sub playlist of GM prep videos that are not available anywhere but to patrons over there. We also have a bunch of other special features and like behind the scenes stuff. Patrons got access to our cool discussion with Andrew Gillis, the designer of Girl by Moonlight, before it became public. I will also plug that the crowdfunding campaign for Girl by Moonlight is coming in this next month. Thank you, Brandon, for putting the Girl by Moonlight command in here. So we're going to want to be hyping that because we had a great time with Girl by Moonlight. That's not this show right now. We finished Fractal Spire, but we want to shout that out as well. And I want to say thank you to my lovely players again. And I will ask them to once again just briefly remind us who you are, where we can find your stuff, and any other short bits that you would like to do, starting with Rhiannon.
Hey, I've been Rhiannon Held. I write my Silver series under Rhiannon Held. That's Urban Fantasy Werewolves. And I write my space opera series of novellas under RZ Held. The series is now complete, if that's an important thing to you. I like to say the theme is the self-identity in the face of technology, because the protagonists have had technology installed on them without consent and have to decide what that means for them. And I am also playing in a D&D game, also of authors, on the Dungeon Scrawlers. That's Wednesday nights, 6:30 Pacific. We have a couple different games that trade off right now. And yeah, that's me.
Okay, Brandon.
As for me, I am Brandon O'Brien. I am a poet, writer, and game designer from Trinidad and Tobago, and one third of the co-hosts of Speculate alongside Mike and Greg. Um, I Before I plug the rest of my things, I would also like to join Mike in reiterating that Girl by Moonlight is absolutely wonderful and is about to be available for you to support on Backakit very, very soon. Um, Apparently, the command is not working, so I'm going to make a proper command so you can actually find the Backakit because it is actually very cool. There is art in the book, and the art is rad, and there are all kinds of other potentially engaging stretch goals and add-ons that you'll also definitely want to check out as well. So look out for more information about that online as well. I wrote the poetry collection "Can You Sign My Tentacle," which is available wherever you get your poetry. It is the winner of the 2022 Elgin Award. It is a weird and silly book about the great old ones of the Cthulhu mythos asking rappers for their autographs. I also have an itch.io storefront where you can buy all of my own games, including stuff that I've made for games that we've played on Speculate, including the Fugitives play sheet for Blades in the Dark, if you ever want to play a group of scoundrels who didn't do anything wrong and don't deserve to be hurt. So definitely check those things out as well. And you can find me online at The Rising Tides on Twitter and Instagram, and on my newsletter at Brandon O'Brien.xyz.
All right. I have been your dancing master. I am Mike. I write as Michael R. Underwood. A novel I don't talk about so much these days is Shield and Crocus. This is a new, weird superhero novel set in a city built in and among the bones of a fallen titan. And it has some of that kind of like early modern magic-ish tech stuff. Lots of great fight scenes because you've got people with superpowers and weird monsters and stuff like that, and that's all fantastic. If you like Court of Blades, you should check out Born to the Blade, which is a political epic fantasy series that I created and co-wrote with Malka Older, Cassandra Kaw, and Marie Brennan. You can find that at realm.fm. I'm on Twitter at Mike R. Underwood, and I play video games sometimes at twitch.tv/turbotango. Over to you, Greg.
Good stuff. And thank you, as always, Mike, for wonderful Dancing Master work and for great play, as usual, from Rhiannon and Brandon. And we will hope in our next Speculate session that we will get Preemie, and then hopefully Marie gets back in here, and we will assemble the crew. The Avengers will reassemble at some point. But this was a ton of fun. I am, again, Gregory Wilson in real life, a college professor. So, yes, I found all the academic stuff very amusing tonight, and an author of various things, but I'm in the middle at the moment of working through my Grey Assassin trilogy series, Grey Shade, which is now a finalist for the IBPA Benjamin Franklin Award in Science Fiction and Fantasy. At silver medalist and will be hopefully a gold medalist. We'll find that out next month. And the sequel to that, Renegade, comes out later this year, Heretic next year, and Brandon O'Brien, one of the two co-hosts along with Mike on Speculate, is doing the tabletop role-playing game version of Grey Shade, which will be out later this year. So there's a lot of stuff that you can check out by going and checking out the various Grey Shade things one way or the other. And yes, let me add my thanks to the Drakes for producing this really awesome game that I've had a ton of fun playing. You will see more stuff from Speculate soon. Please do support the Speculate Patreon because it really does help us out. And also you can get cool stuff for yourself, including that behind the scenes stuff, which I think is really valuable, and it makes it easier for us to be able to produce things in various ways. But I'm going to we'll let the players go. And actually, I guess I'll just outro directly off of this too. I will be back on my channel tomorrow with some Inkle's Sorcery 4, which is extraordinarily complex and really awesome game you should check out. That'll be at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. But then we'll have more Speculate stuff coming down the line quite soon. So thank you again to Mike, to Rhiannon, to Brandon, and chat. Thank you to all of you for being awesome. And we will see you back here quite soon. Please follow the channel, support the channel, but most of all, please support the Speculate Patreon tonight with !Speculate. And we will see you folks all soon. Bye for now.
Welcome, dearest retainers, to Court of Blades, and welcome to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. A city where hearts race and swords flash, where intrigue and danger lie around every corner. Centuries ago, celebrated veterans were given title to Valor Isle, a place long abandoned by its first residents. Here, the heroes found ancient secrets, bountiful land, and a fruit bearing oracular gifts. Generations later, 6 families vie for ultimate control of this jewel of the archipelago, each seeking to lead the great dance of houses. A new retinue rises to clash with flashing blades, veiled plots, and powerful magics in pursuit of their house's interests and their own secret ambitions. Speculate presents Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, starring Primi Mohammed, Marie Bilodeau, Brandon O'Brien, Gregory A. Wilson, and your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Be welcome, retainer. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's time for Court of Blades.